This is part 2, where we're going to be talking about the Feast of Trumpets, basically how it applies in the end times. And this is critical, crucial information that we all need to pay attention to. And I would just challenge you to study this, to get a copy of the show notes, to watch the video, and to prayerfully consider what I'm sharing with you today. I think it's really important information. So let's take a look at the Feast of Trumpets and the end times. So in the previous video, I talked about heavenly signs like the Star of Bethlehem, as well as confirmations that people were given so that they could know that the Word of God was in the process of being fulfilled, or that a message that had been given to them was actually from God, an accurate message. Like to Mary, you're going to be the mother of the Savior, and this is a sign for you. You'll find Elizabeth 6 months pregnant. Mary went to go see Elizabeth, and it was true. Elizabeth was pregnant with John the Baptist, and it was all verifiable. And that's one of the wonderful things about God's confirmations, is that they are specific and verifiable, especially to the people who are in a position where they need to know. So when it comes to other signs, other confirmations of prophetic feast days, and remember, the feasts of the Lord are prophecy. They're all prophecy. They're prophetic. So have there been any other heavenly signs which took place over the Feast of Trumpets? Okay, and of course, the answer to that is yes. The great sign of Revelation 12, 1 and 2. And if you're watching this video and you haven't heard about this in the past, well, this is something I've talked about a lot on my channel for over 8 years. Revelation 12, 1 and 2. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and in the agony of giving birth. So this was a starry alignment in the actual heavens above that took place on one of the feasts of the Lord, the Feast of Trumpets, and it's called a sign. So there are many layers in prophecy and in prophetic symbols, and particularly in the feasts of the Lord. And the Revelation 12 sign, which took place in the starry heavens, and remember from Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. And from Genesis 1:14, the sun, moon, and stars are for signs and for seasons, that is, appointed times, and for days and for years. So a lot of people, including myself, were expecting to be raptured because of what we read in the next sign, the sign of the dragon, which includes the rapture or the catching away of the male child. And because people conflated those two signs together and made them sort of one sign, and the rapture didn't happen, a lot of people, and probably most people who thought the Revelation 12 sign was something, sort of went back to the idea that, well, we don't know what that was. It wasn't really anything. This is something that took place years ago, or this takes place every Feast of Trumpets. They didn't understand what to do with that sign. So the movement of the sun and moon and stars through the heavens acts as a giant celestial clock. And this kind of clock was established by God as a tamper-proof. In other words, Satan cannot tamper with this. It's a fail-safe timepiece. The starry heavens form both a calendar and a clock. And they were given to us so that God and man could be on the same page, have our day timers line up with regard to time and the fulfillment of prophecy in particular. So along with the feasts of the Lord, the starry heavens act as God's appointment book, his alarm clock, and they're meant to help us know where we're at in terms of prophetic history. Psalm 19 tells us the heavens speak and that their language is universal. The great sign of Revelation 12, 1 and 2 was a concrete, real-time indicator informing us that God was about to do something new, and that we should be watching for the other prophetic events as described in Revelation, specifically or especially the second sign, the sign of the dragon. The Revelation 12 sign, Revelation 12, 1 and 2, was a real-world symbolic representation of the end-time prophetic realities which are about to take place. In this case, the woman represented the constellation Virgo. Later in the chapter, the woman is going to represent the remnant of Israel. The crown above her head was formed by the 9-star constellation of Leo, plus the 3 wandering stars of Mercury, Mars, and Venus, 12 stars in all. She was clothed with the sun, meaning that the sun was in Virgo, something that takes place every September as the sun moves through the constellations on the ecliptic plane. The crescent moon was at her feet. That tells us we're talking about the Feast of Trumpets. The child with which she was pregnant was the planet Jupiter, which had been in retrograde motion inside of the constellation of Virgo for over 9 months. This particular alignment has only happened once in 7,000 years. Once. Similar alignments have taken place, but they were not the fulfillment of this prophecy because not all the elements were in place. The symbolic picture described in Revelation 12, 1 and 2 actually appeared in the sky, in the starry heavens. It was real. You can still see it if you go to a computer program like Stellarium or any other astronomical program. And there are many articles written about the sign back in 2015, 2016, 2017. Its presence could be independently verified. It was not a spiritual or mystical sign. We can actually attach a date to it. September 23rd, 2017. The second day of the 2-day Feast of Trumpets in 2017. This alignment was concrete and verifiable, fulfilling what we would expect to see in the starry heavens. Nothing was missing, and the timing was perfect, even taking place at the climax of a fall feast of the Lord, the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah. Now, here is where it gets interesting. You have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. And one of the characteristics of religious people in general is that we can be very blind to what is actually in front of us, and our ears can be very deaf to hearing spiritual truth. When the wise men from the east arrived in Jerusalem, they were looking for the King of the Jews, and they came to Jerusalem, the capital city. But they seemed to be the only people who were aware of what had happened. They were the only ones who understood the significance of this astronomical alignment that they saw in the sky when the star was going around Regulus, the king's star, in Leo. This star sign indicated to them that the King of the Jews had been born. Now, King Herod was troubled, and it says all Jerusalem was troubled with him. And so Herod assembled the chief priests and the scribes to find out where the new king would be born. And you know the rest of the story. Everyone was troubled. Everybody was like in an uproar. But it seemed like only the Magi knew the significance of that star. The Revelation 12 sign was for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. It's a trumpet that silently sounded in the heavens on the Feast of Trumpets in 2017. A voice that silently declared that we were fast approaching the closing days of history, and that those with understanding should prepare themselves for the arrival of the second sign, the sign of the dragon. You'll notice that the dragon's sign, if you read about it in Revelation chapter 12, verses 3 to 6, the dragon's sign is not described as great or wonderful, how God's signs are described, because it's really not God's sign. Rather, it is most likely a sign that's been linked to Satan and one of his holy days, one of his appointed times. And there's a star sign that accompanies or that pinpoints the specific date which he uses to commemorate the flood, death, destruction, the release of the spirits of the giants in the form of demons, the imprisonment of the watcher angels on Halloween, October 31st, which this year in 2025 is going to coincide with the actual days of Noah, the days that are given to us in the book of Genesis. And this is really what my book Convergence is all about. It's about the days of Noah and the sign of the dragon, the sign that we're watching for right now. So in 2017, like I said earlier, many people conflated the sign of the dragon with the Revelation 12 sign, though they are actually two distinct signs. And the second sign will actually take place sometime after the great sign. Now, we didn't know how long after the great sign this sign of the dragon is going to take place or will take place. But here we are, we're 8 years after the Revelation 12 sign, which took place on the Feast of Trumpets on September 23rd of 2017. And here we are approaching another Feast of Trumpets 8 years later. And I know that people are expecting perhaps that the rapture will take place at that time. But the pattern of what we should expect to see and the role of a trumpet or the role of an attention getter doesn't have anything to do with a rapture. Nothing at all. All the Feast of Trumpets is warning or something that is telling us that we're at an inflection point now. We're at an inflection point in God's spiritual plan, and he is about to do the next phase. So at Christ's coming, at his first coming, we had both a star sign, the Star of Bethlehem, that appeared over the Feast of Trumpets, and a human forerunner who showed up over the Feast of Trumpets. And both of these were to prepare people to receive Jesus at his first coming. And so here's the question now. Should we expect both a star sign and a person or persons to sound the alarm before Christ's second coming? There were about 30 years between the Star of Bethlehem and the arrival of John the Baptist, two different fulfillments of the Feast of Trumpets in the first century. So will there be two fulfillments of the Feast of Trumpets during the end times? We know that John the Baptist was the forerunner of Christ who came to prepare the way of the Lord. He came to identify Jesus as the Messiah at Jesus' baptism. And though John performed no miracles, he came in the spirit and power of an Old Testament prophet, Elijah, who is also associated with the two witnesses. John was the first century Elijah who preceded Jesus' arrival at his first coming. Might the real Elijah, one of the two witnesses, arrive on the next Feast of Trumpets as did John in the first century? Perhaps in 2025? This is what I'm looking for, not a rapture, but the arrival of the two witnesses. Though many believers are watching for the rapture to take place over the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, it's really important that we understand that the rapture of believers doesn't fit the pattern of the Feast of Trumpets as established at Jesus' first coming, when the Star of Bethlehem appeared in the sky, and John the Baptist arrived shouting for the people to prepare for the Lord's coming. Neither the appearance of the star sign nor the appearance of the forerunner provides a pattern for a rapture event, but both acted as attention getters, like a trumpet or a shout, and they announced to God's people that they were approaching another spiritual inflection point. And I think that we have been warned as well. It's my belief, my understanding, and yours may differ, but it's my understanding that the first end time shout took place over the Feast of Trumpets in 2017. We already had a big wake-up call, and we've had 8 years to search the scriptures, which is something that I've been doing, by the way. I've been searching the scriptures, particularly the book of Revelation, and from Revelation using its hundreds of allusions to other passages of scripture, both Old and New Testament. What's happened is I've gotten a much, much bigger understanding, not just of the end times, but how the end times fit into the big plan of God's salvation of mankind, his judgment of the fallen ones, his judgment of people, how he brings sons into his heavenly temple. It's so big. The picture is so much bigger, and the story is so much bigger than anything we've been told. But it's my belief, and like I said, yours may differ, that the first shout, the first teruah, the first trumpet blast, took place over the Feast of Trumpets in 2017 with the Revelation 12 sign. And my expectation now in 2025 is that we're looking for the arrival of the 2 witnesses in the very near future. Hopefully this year. And sometime after that, shortly after that, we're going to see the sign of the dragon. And I believe that will coincide with the days of Noah, which are going to take place right in conjunction with Halloween up through about November the 9th. So those are the significant dates that I would put for this year. And remember, the woman, that is Israel, is going to be in travail. And we're looking for a huge, huge, gigantic war or an invasion of Israel where she will be all alone. And it's in the context of that invasion that we also see a third of Satan's angels, his stars, being cast to the earth, as well as other real stars, things that can be verified. The world at large can look at and go, yeah, there's a lot of asteroids or meteors falling to the earth. There seems to be some weird comet here that's entering the constellation of Virgo right around September. There is something going on in the skies, in the stars, in the sky where people can actually see it. This is not something mystical or spiritual. This will be verifiable. So that is what I'm watching for right around Halloween up through November 9th. And the war in Israel, the big war, the big invasion, I would expect to see sometime toward the end of October. Right? And before then, we should expect to see a whole lot of wars and rumors of wars. And again, this isn't just, wishful thinking. You'll be able to see the ships at sea, the militaries and the alliances already formed, and war plans being made, and nations setting themselves up for a confrontation. And the day that we're raptured, which hopefully won't be any later than November 9th, the day we're raptured, all hell is going to break out on earth. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be catastrophic, worse than anything anyone can imagine. And, if you're a believer and you haven't been walking with Jesus, you've just been shining him on in your life, you haven't been serious with him, well, you're going to wish you'd gotten serious with him. And it's not too late. It's not too late at all. There's still time. And if you don't know the Lord at all, this is a really good time to say you want to be a part of God's inner circle. You want to be a child of God. You want to be his son. You want to enter into the glories of his kingdom. This is a good time to say yes to the Lord. I think it's always a good thing to say yes to Jesus. And then he will give you his spirit, and then you will embark on a journey where now it's getting the leaven out of your life, getting out the teaching, getting out the old character, getting out the old values that this world has placed inside of us. That's basically what I wanted to say about the Feast of Trumpets and about how I'm looking at the end times coming up. And I'm going to be doing a lot more videos and hopefully more live streams as well. And I hope you'll join me on those. I hope you'll share my videos with other people, that you'll get a copy of my book, Convergence. It's in several translations. There's also an audiobook that's free, and it's also on Mediafire and on the Jumpdrives that you can order from Brother Ken. And the link to all of those things is in the description box below this video. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you've been encouraged and blessed, and I hope there's been some light shed on the feasts of the Lord, in particular the Feast of Trumpets, and we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.